Howdy, folks. Kind of looked into this COPPA thing. I have a few opinions myself. One, I'm not panicking, so my opinion's a little different. I actually did a little research of my own types, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there. First, I had a big misconception. I kept thinking it was the FCC that was doing that. This law was through. It's the FTC, which to me is totally different. FCC, I wouldn't trust. The FTC, that's different. That's the Federal Trade Commission. They're not as nutso as the FCC. And so I watched the FTC press conference. It came out on the 11th, but I actually sat down and watched the whole thing twice, listening to what they had to say and what they were talking about. Main thing that bothered me was, and I put this up here so you can find it. There it is. If you want to watch what I watched. The first thing you get that I didn't like is they talk about the fine and how great that is for them because it covers a year's worth of budget. I don't really like them gloating that they got a big fine. That's not too cool because that does give you the feeling that they might want to go after people just for money. And I never put it past the government to do that, like a speed trap idea. And I'm not going to say we're safe, because the law is not black and white, but it is pretty clear, and it seems to be that they're pretty clear about its intentions as well. At about the 40-minute mark, he starts talking. This is she there, but there's a guy who's answering questions, and he starts talking about YouTube Kids, the YouTube Kids site. And first of all, I should say the first big misconception is this law has nothing to do with content. A lot of people think it has to do with kids just watching their channels, and they want, and it's a joke on a lot of them. I've joked about it with disclaimers saying that if you're under 13, you don't want to watch this, and so it doesn't matter if they watch it or not. It's not a content type of law, although content matters. So does intent, apparently, according to the law. What they don't want, and what happened, which was YouTube's fault, they did it. That's why YouTube got hit with this $100 million or $100-something million fine, and you're not allowed to collect data of someone under the age of 13 without parents' consent or whatever, but you can't do it. You can't have a 10-year-old and have them give you your email, give them their email, and you keep it, and then you use that information knowing that they're like 10 years old to sell to them. You're really not supposed to directly sell to kids. That's always been a rough thing since way back when. I remember when G.I. Joe came out, and they were trying to advertise G.I. Joe toys on G.I. Joe cartoons. Well, the cartoon was virtually a half hour, 20-minute, whatever it was, long advertisement. And then to throw ads for the toys in it and gear it towards 10-year-olds, that's kind of a no-no. And it's illegal. And most of us would think that's kind of gross too, right? Although people will always skirt the system, and the way Marvel got the G.I. Joe comic book license was they said they were going to make G.I. Joe comics, and G.I. Joe wanted them to. And the big thing was that they could put ads for the toys in the comics because there was no laws covering that. And they could advertise the comics on the cartoon. So there would be ads for the G.I. Joe comic book because it was just a book. You could advertise a book, because that's not really as direct. It's not quite the same. And then they'd buy the book, and there were ads for the toys. So they found little ways around. But that's just other history things of how people have cheated. And people were cheating the system, and we'll see a little bit about that. So at about 40 minutes, they get in, they start talking about stuff like YouTube Kids. And he talks about it, and they're saying they're going to look, what they want to look for is content that is directed at kids. And a lot of the things I've been worried about, a lot of people, when they talk about like Legos, are Legos directed at kids, or are they just kid friendly? And he's talking, and you got to watch it in the terms, he's using kid friendly, kid invitable, and directed at kids. And he talks about YouTube for kids. It's directed at kids. It also happens to have family entertainment on it, such as history and the I Have a Dream speech and things that are okay for kids but not directed at kids. And that made me happy. He said not directed at kids. So they know. It's not they're going to play some big guessing game and they're going to see that you're looking at Legos and they're going to fine you $42 million. I don't think that's going to happen. Of course, I can't say it's not going to happen. It's our government. They do things at times, weird things. Every once in a while you hear that's a story. There was a story, and I'll just throw this out real quick. From the 90s, it was a comic book store. It's kind of related, kind of unrelated. Comic book store that had a section in the back of adult comic books. And they had some undercover people come in and buy Vampirotica, which is an adult comic, and they were adults. And they bought them. And then a couple more people bought them, adults, bought some other adult merchandise at the comic book store. They then got arrested and fined heavily and hit with a 5-year potential jail sentence, some pretty nasty stuff. It was Planet Comics versus, I want to say North Carolina. But it's Planet Comics. You can look up the Planet Comics case. That's it. It was Planet Comics. They got hit with some hefty fines, and finally a company called the Comic Book Legal Defense League came in, and what they were hit with was being that it was a comic book store, so it was a kids store that was selling adult material, which is not true. Everyone knows a comic book is just a comic book. It's not, at least if you're on YouTube and making not questionable content you're questioning, will I get in trouble for this? Just because kids might like it. Just because kids might like comic books does not mean all comic books are made for kids. Just because kids might like your video does not mean you made your video for kids. And they seem to get this when I was watching the FTC thing, when they talked about YouTube Kids, where they said there's family friendly, which would be history, just family friendly, like the Cosby Show. They would not consider that directed at kids. I could tell, the way they talk, they did not give me that vibe. And then to just further look into it, I looked at a timeline of violations of the COPPA Act. And you see who got nailed, and they were nailed for directly marketing to kids. Lisa Frank had a website directed towards children. And you look at some of these things, and these were all people who had websites directed at children. Hershey's, and one of the software cases was someone who would sell toys like Barbies. I don't know if they were a Barbie one. Might have been one of these mentions it. If you remember that story, Mattel, here it is. Mattel got nailed for $250,000. And they had, I think it was a Barbie that would memorize the kid's name and information about the kid. Mattel would then use that information to directly advertise to the kid to try and get him to buy more Barbies. That's a no-no. So the problem is, what people would do is they would say their ads or their videos were not kid-friendly, but are not kid-directed. There might be kid-friendly, but not kid-directed, but they were kid-directed because they wanted to get the advertising dollars that you get when you get monetized on YouTube. So if you say you're kid-directed, you're not going to get good ads. This was before, too. This is not some new stuff. So people were actually sneaking it. It wasn't just some random stuff. There were people making, and you know what these videos are. I don't know how they're flagged, only YouTube, and if you watch the ads or whatever, know if they're that type of flagging. But you look, these were ones, and so they're not going after just anyone. They're pretty consistent at kid directed, and I went to would be a kid directed website. It's Bazooka's website, and you can look at the candies. There's games on it, and they don't take names. You don't have to put in, and it says on it the children's privacy policies and kids marketing policies. Over here on the left, they're very aware. They're saying we don't take anything. We won't save any information. They are so clear on that they are kid, and this is what the FTC is looking for: something that is kid directed, that tries to sell to kids. And here's an example of it happening. We've got Ryan. Little Ryan's, what is it called? Ryan's World, Ryan's Toys, Ryan. I don't know what his name is. He's that kid, you know him. He's a super big star here on YouTube. Well, he got in trouble with the FTC. And apparently he made these two different videos within a few days. This one is Ryan Pretend Play Pizza Delivery. And he's just, no, it's not going to run right now. I don't know what's happening, but that doesn't matter. I guess I probably just have to do this. No, it's anyways, he's play pretend delivery, and it's fine. They're just pretending they're playing toys. It's directed at kids, and I'm pretty sure that they have said all their videos are directed at kids. And you watch these, they're super directed at kids. And these are the videos that they don't want you marking that they're not directed at kids. I mean, and then you've got this video, and this is the one that got him in trouble, and it's not going to play for me. But basically, he got a deal with Carl's Jr. where he was a Happy Meal, or a Carl's Jr. Hardee's toy, and he made a kid's drive. They made a video here. Oh, I see where it is. Yeah, now it'll play probably. No? Yeah. Okay, so he made a video, this one. The problem is,
Ryan's World toys you can collect. One surprise toys in the star pack.
He's clearly selling the toy in his YouTube video and telling kids to go to Carl's Jr. and get the toy, and he's sponsored by Carl's Jr. It's his toy. You can't do that. That's what you don't want. So that's really, I mean, I'm confident, and I wasn't worried because I'm not monetized. I'm not trying to sneak my videos to kids and then get the money for them, because you couldn't do that. You can't get money for them if they're directed at kids. And I wasn't trying to be sneaky, and I think YouTube's just being paranoid themselves by they are telling the Lego people to YouTube is the ones giving the toy people, some of the comic book people, and some of those a little more of a hard time right now, and they're scared, but they're not. I don't think they should be scared of the FTC. Maybe be scared of YouTube. Maybe YouTube will start pulling stuff like that to cover their own butts because they're scared. That's the whole thing, because we got two people we're dealing with. But as far as that big fine goes, after me looking at what the FTC has done, who they've gone after, and why, and hearing the guy talk about kid-friendly versus kid-directed, I'm very confident that the FTC knows the difference, and they're not just looking for any excuse. They're not just going to say, uh-oh, you've got a Power Ranger in your video, we're taking $42,000 out of your bank. I just don't see that happening after looking at all the stuff where they really said they've gone over stuff. You know, once it gets to them, you might get flagged, you might get looked at, but I have a feeling, you know, if you know you're not making it for kids, but even, you know, it might be kid friendly, but it's not directed at kids. It's pretty clear within the law. They even say, you know, the bright colors, you see kids playing, you see play, you know, there's a difference, and it's not I don't think it's anything to worry about. That's my take on the COPPA thing. All right, thanks folks.